In this video, we're going to be covering the home buying process here in Hampton Roads from beginning to end. So if you're a first-time home buyer and this process is completely foreign to you, this video is a must watch. And if you've bought and sold before, I think this will be a great refresher course for you. So stick around and we're going to get right to it. My name's David Tortellini, and I've been helping people buy and sell property here in Hampton Roads since 2010. If this is your first time to the channel, hit the subscribe button so you can get alerted to our future videos. Then definitely go back and watch a bunch of our past videos as well. Then when you're ready to get started, give me a call, shoot me a text, or send me an email. I'd love to help you out. If you're already a client and I sent you this video directly, well, congratulations, you're one step ahead of the game. Okay, well, your first step to buying a home here in Hampton Roads is to meet with me. And so if you're here already, we can meet in person, go grab a coffee and talk. And if not, we can always jump on Zoom, or we can even just get on a phone call. So it's as simple as that. It's really our opportunity to start discussing this process, answer any questions you have, and then really get into things about like why you are looking to move. Like what makes it a good time for you and your family to purchase a home. So we'll start with that. Then we can get into, your timeline. Or do you need to buy a home immediately? Or are you still 6-9 months out from making that move? So we'll get your timeline in place, figure out exactly how urgent this process is, and then we can act accordingly. And then, of course, we'll discuss what you're looking for in a home. That's what you really want to talk about, right? So we'll talk about, what cities you want to be in, maybe school zones. Do you want a single family home, townhouse, beds, baths, square footage? Then we'll go into like layout. Do you need a big kitchen, prefer a big living room for a giant TV? What kind of lifestyle do you live that can help you find the right home? So we'll go into all of that. We fill out what's called my dream home builder document, and we'll go through everything, really get into the details of what you're looking for in a home, and then we can actually get you set up in the MLS to receive property alerts. And so that's going to be one of our big goals leaving that first meeting, is to know enough about what you're looking for that we can plug your contact information into the MLS, which is where all of our agent listings go into, and then those spider out into all the third-party websites. But we can get you right into the MLS, make sure that you're receiving property alerts the second they hit the market or the second there's a price reduction that makes it a better fit for you. So I'll get those too. And then, if you're looking in Williamsburg, we actually have to set you up on 2 different searches because there's a separate MLS in Williamsburg that overlaps with the rest of Hampton Roads. It's a little confusing. So you get 2 emails if you're looking in Williamsburg, but everyone else, you just get 1. And, we'll be able to make sure that when properties hit the market that are interesting to you, that you're alerted to them right away and you're not scrolling through third-party sites over and over and over again, digging through the same properties. The next step in the home buying process is to meet with your loan officer. Now, if you already have a loan officer that you're working with, that's great. But if you don't, I have a couple of preferred loan officers and I can send you to them and they can help get you squared away on your mortgage pre-approval. So we do this for a variety of reasons. Now, what they're going to do is they're going to run your credit, and then they're going to check your debts and your income, and they're going to see what you qualify for. And this is really going to help us lock in what price point we need to be shopping in. Now, what it also does is allows you to reverse engineer your budget to a price point. So say you know that you can afford $2,500 a month towards your mortgage plus taxes and insurance. Now, a mortgage officer can take that, make sure you are approved for that amount per month, and then reverse engineer that into a listing price. So that gives us a better idea of what we'll be looking for when we're out home shopping. It also means that we're not going to be running around to properties that are way more expensive than you can afford and also way less than you can afford. So we really want to be looking in that sweet spot. And that's as a service to you and as a service to the sellers. And we really want to make sure we do this before we go out looking at properties, because we want to make sure that we have ready, able, and willing buyers when we bring them into people's homes. If we're going to ask people to get out of their home and give us an hour in their house, it's our service to them to make sure that you are actually approved and could write an offer if you love the house. So The other thing they're going to do is they're going to check and make sure that you are looking at the right loan type. So you could be, if you're military, you probably want to use your VA loan. So they'll discuss those options with you. And there's also first-time homebuyer programs. You could be a conventional loan because there are, different down payment amounts, anywhere from 3% on a conventional loan up to 20% or more. So you could figure out exactly what you want to put down for a down payment, which programs work best for you. Are there any grants available for you? So depending on the loan officer and the time of year, there are a lot of variables that go into getting a mortgage. And it's their job to really walk you through that whole process to make sure you understand the financial side 100% before we're jumping in the car to go look at houses. All right. So step number 2, of meeting with a mortgage officer, you might be saying to yourself, wow, that sounds like a lot. Maybe I should do that first. Yes. So the good thing about this part is that you could really interchange step 1 and 2. If you're not sure about your finances right now, if you don't know what your credit score is, you're not quite sure what you're going to qualify for or what price point you think you want to be in, it would be no harm whatsoever to meet with the loan officer first and then meet with me. So that's very, very common. We have a lot of people that are in a position where they're not sure if they can buy, or they're really not familiar with that area at all. So it makes a lot more sense for them to meet with the loan officer first, then come meet with me. So either one works perfectly. All right, so those are really your first 2 steps. Step 1, meet with me. Step 2, meet with the loan officer, or vice versa. And the next step is the fun part. We're gonna head out and look at homes. Now that I know what you're looking for in a home and we have properties being sent to you, and we know what price point you're looking in, when homes hit the market that are interesting to you and you want to go take a look at them, we'll get in the car and go. And when I say get in the car, I mean you'll get in your car and I'll get in mine, because we all have GPS, so we can just meet at the properties. The days of clients actually getting in the realtor's car, those are long gone. I think as soon as GPS became a thing, we all just said, all right, we can take our own car, that way we can listen to our own music, listen to our own podcasts, take phone calls, do what we need to do in the car on the way to and from the properties. So we'll meet at the properties and then we'll go from there. Now, when we go to look at a home, what I want my clients to do is to give me their feedback, good and bad. It really helps me kind of hone in on what we're looking for if you tell me what you like and what you don't like. And if you don't like a property, we don't need to stay there. We could be in the house for 5 seconds. You can look right in and say, nope, this isn't for me, and leave. I've even had clients pull into a neighborhood and pull up in front of the house and get out of their car and say, no way, I'm living in this neighborhood. And we get back in the car and leave. So it's not my house. I don't care. So if you don't like a property, we do not need to spend time there. But if you do really like a property, as long as there's no time constraints with other showings behind us, we can spend as much time as you really need in that home to decide whether or not it's a great fit for you. Also, when we go into homes, I generally have just a couple of rules. If anything is in the house that you would own, like cabinets, closets, things like that, you can open them. The one thing that you really cannot touch is personal property. So especially things like dresser drawers. I've had people open underwear drawers before out of habit, like they just did it reflexively and they couldn't figure out why they did it. But you just don't want to touch personal property. Don't steal anything. Don't break anything. Those are generally the rules. We just try to leave the property in the exact same condition when we walked in. And some properties, they're going to ask you to take off your shoes. Some you might have to wear booties. Please just ask that people be respectful of the sellers. But we're going to go into properties and we're going to see as many as it takes for you to find one that you absolutely love. I've certainly had people where we walk into one property, they say, this is amazing, and they buy it. I've had a couple other people where we've been in the 50 plus property range. I think my most all time is 74. I'd like to not repeat that. So just know, but if it takes a while to find the right house, if we have to see quite a few, that is totally fine. We're going to do everything we can to make sure we find you a home that you absolutely love. All right, step 3, looking at houses. And once we find a property that you do love, that will bring us to step 4, and that's to write an offer. So I know on like HGTV shows, they all seem to just say, okay, let's submit an offer for 300, and then everybody parts ways, and somehow an offer got submitted. Well, that's not reality. In the real world, we actually have to fill out about 20 to 30 pages of paperwork and have you sign those to actually submit a real offer. So we've got a ton of paperwork. It's a bunch of disclosures. We could really bullet point the important things in about 7 or 8 lines, and then the rest are just things that you just need to know about the home buying process. And of course, we'll go through those when it's time to actually write an offer. The other things we're going to need are a pre-approval letter from the lender that has a number on it that's at least what you're offering. So, if you're writing an offer for $300,000, we need to have a pre-approval letter that says at least you're good for $300,000 on it. It can be higher too. That's totally fine. Now, the other thing we need from you is what's called an earnest money deposit. At least that's what we call it in our area. So this is really like a good faith deposit. And this can be as low as, say, $500 for, if you're buying a small condo, something inexpensive, up to, if you're starting to look at luxury property, you're going to be looking at EMDs of around, $10,000 or more. It could be 1% of the purchase price, something like that. And so for our market, for an average price property in the $300,000, $400,000 range, something along $2,000, $2,500, something like that would be pretty normal. And what happens with this is once you get the property, assuming you ratify a contract on it, this gets deposited with our escrow agent. And it gets held until closing. And at closing, it will get applied to the total that you need to actually bring to closing. So if you're supposed to bring a total of, say, $20,000 to closing and you brought a $2,500 EMD, now you'll have to bring an additional $17,500. So they subtract that $2,500 that they already have. Now, if the deal falls apart, you can get that money back. So if you back out based on, say, something like home inspection, or for one of the legal reasons that you can back out of a deal, you can actually get that $2,500 back. If you just refuse to close, or if you default on your mortgage, so you do something like, instead of keeping your finances straight, you go out and buy a Ferrari and you can no longer afford your home, well, you have now defaulted on your mortgage. You do not get that money back. So there are ways to get it back. There are ways that you do not get that money back. But just know that it is yours. Assuming you go to closing, that money is held safely in escrow and then gets applied to your total down at settlement. So that is the offer process. And as long as we have that earnest money deposit, we have all our paperwork filled out, and then we have a mortgage pre-approval letter, we are good to go. Well, congratulations, they accepted your offer. That's going to take us to our next step, and that's the home inspection. Now, I should say you do have the right to waive your home inspection, but for about 99% of my resale clients, we are going to want to do a home inspection for sure. So generally speaking, we're going to have about 7 to 10 days to get the home inspection done, and I can recommend several home inspectors to you based on what you're looking for in terms of cost and service level. So we'll get that great home inspector in there. I will be at the home inspection, and I'd love for you to be there too. That way the home inspector can show you what he's seeing as he's going through the property. Now, he's going to look at everything. So he's going to go in the crawl space. He's going to check everything under the house. He's going to check all around the home, look at all the outlets and plumbing inside the house. He's going to look at, the roof, the attic. He's really going to cover every square inch and give you as much detail about your property as possible. So I'll tell you every little teeny tiny thing that's wrong with it that you would never notice in 20 years of living there, and he's going to tell you some major issues that he would recommend getting fixed immediately because it could be a long-term problem or a very expensive problem if they continue. So we're going to run the gamut in terms of all that, but his job is really going to be to give you all the information on the property possible so that you know whether or not you can move forward with the contract. So once we've had the home inspection, depending on the terms of our offer, we will be able to submit a list of requested repairs to the seller. We call that the PICRA. It's the Property Inspection Contingency Removal Addendum. It's a mouthful, so we call it the PICRA. And so we'll submit a PICRA that has a detailed list of repair requests that we can send to the seller. And then we have a 5-day period to negotiate that list. Now, assuming we can come to an agreement on the list, great, we move forward with the deal. If we can't come to an agreement on that list and you feel like you cannot move forward with the purchase of the property, you can release from the contract and you get your earnest money deposit back. So that is one of the situations where you can get your earnest money deposit back. But our goal is really to negotiate a repair list that makes sense for you, make sure that you absolutely love the property and the condition, and make sure that there are no major problems the day you move in. The next step is the second inspection that takes place on your property, and that's the termite and moisture exam. Now, around here, the way we do it the majority of time is that the seller is going to both order that inspection and pay for it. Now, there are situations where that's not the case, and the buyer may order it and the seller may pay for it, or the buyer can order it and pay for it. It can happen a bunch of ways, but usually the seller orders and pays for it. And what's going to happen is a termite and moisture specialist is going to go to the house. They're going to go into the crawl space. Now, if you're on a slab, obviously they can't inspect below the house if it's on a slab, or they'll go into the basement. But as I mentioned, we don't really have a lot of basements around here. So really, they're going to go into that crawl space and they're looking for two things. They're going to be looking for wood-destroying insects, and most commonly that's going to be termites. And they're going to be looking for fungal growth in the crawl space. And that is going to be pretty common around here. You know, this is a hot, humid environment that's right on the water. So, you know, the opportunity for both fungal growth that can lead to kind of wet joists under the house, which is great for termites. They love that too. So fungal growth, termites are all really common around here. But what they're going to do is they're going to go check that out. They're going to check the perimeter of the house as well, go into, you know, garages. They may have to go into the home if it's on a slab and check around the perimeter of the interior of the home. So they're going to go and make sure that there are no wood-destroying insects and no fungus that you need to worry about. And if there is something that does come up, the way our contract reads is the seller is required to do any treatment or repair that costs less than 1% of the purchase price. So if you have a $300,000 purchase and there's a treatment or a repair that needs to get done and it costs less than $3,000, the seller has to do it. If it goes above that, it becomes negotiable. If it goes beyond that and we can't come to terms on who's going to pay for the additional money, then you can technically back out of the deal. So it does put the seller in a tough position because now they know that they have, you know, a problem that they need to deal with in order for anyone with a loan to buy the property, and they're going to have to remedy it somehow. Now, the other thing that you need to know is if you are looking in Williamsburg, they have a slightly different contract, and the cap isn't 1%, it's only $1,000. So a little bit different market in Williamsburg. They use a slightly different contract, and it does create a little bit of a discrepancy. So just make sure you know kind of the terms of the contract that you're writing, so you understand fully what you're getting into and what the seller's liability on termite and moisture is going to be. But hopefully that's all good. You know, as I mentioned, we call it the 1% cap. Now that 1% can be changed. So during negotiation, they could change it, but just if you leave the contract as is, it's the seller is required to do anything that costs less than 1% of purchase price for termite and moisture. All right, and that's going to bring us to step 7, and that's final loan application. So for this, we're actually going to take a step back in time to the day we ratify your contract. So what happens is when we get a ratified contract, one of the first things we do is send it straight to your loan officer. And they're going to take that, and that's when they're going to reach out to you to lock in your interest rate. So you lock in your interest rate on the day you have a ratified contract, not the day you get pre-approved. So I think that's kind of a misconception in the industry. So you can get pre-approved, but if you don't buy right away, then there's a chance that the interest rates will have fluctuated between your pre-approval and the day you go under contract. So you're going to need to make sure that you know what you're locking in at, because that's going to be your real rate. Now, the other thing they're going to do is start requesting any final documents that they need from you. Now, a lot of times they've already requested pretty much everything they need from you, and that's great. But sometimes, especially if we're moving fast, there could still be some outstanding documents, and they're going to start giving you a list of everything they need. By the time you're done, you're going to think you need to give them your firstborn child, your right leg, whatever. No one likes the process. You have to give them way too much, but they're also going to give you a ton of money. So you just got to do what they say. So what they're also going to do is collect money from you to order your appraisal. So we'll talk about appraisal real quick. Now, a lot of times we wait until we've completed the home inspection to make sure we order that appraisal because we don't want to waste your money. But what's going to happen is the bank is going to get an appraiser out to the property. And that appraiser's job is not to do a full home inspection. Their job is really to put a value on the home to make sure the bank is doing a good loan. Make sure that they're giving you $300,000 for a house that's worth $300,000. They're not giving you $300,000 for a house that's worth $200,000. So the thing that's really important to know is if the appraisal comes in at purchase price or higher, then you're good to go. If it comes in below purchase price, we may need to renegotiate your deal because depending on your loan type, you may not be able to purchase the home without the appraisal coming in at value. So it's very important. And while I said that the appraiser isn't necessarily going to do an inspection, they do have a right to look at the total condition of the property and make sure there aren't any things like safety hazards that could potentially make this not a good home. So especially on, say, the VA loan, they're going to have things that are really common, like installing handrails where there are 3 or more stairs, or they might make you scrape and paint places where there could be flaking paint. That's been a very common one the last few years. So there are going to be some condition standards that need to be met depending on the loan type. Like with FHA and VA loans, you generally can't buy homes that are totally trashed, but you can with a large down payment conventional. So it's just, those are things that we'll discuss as we go through the process, depending on what you're looking for in a home. So really, they're going to do that process. Then your loan officer is going to send your file over to their underwriter, and the underwriter is going to review your whole file and make sure that you've submitted everything you need. And if they have any questions, even they could ask for some additional documentation. So don't be surprised if you're bringing documents to your loan officer really right up until the final week of closing. And that's going to bring us to our next step, and that's going to be title search. So one of the things we're going to do with your contract once we have a ratified deal is we're going to send it to our title attorney for them to start working the file. Now, you have the right to select any title settlement company that you want, but most people don't have one. So we do have a preferred company that we send most of our files over to, and the processor is going to get started making sure that you get clear title to the property. They're going to make sure there are no liens against the home, where there are mechanics liens or tax liens. They're going to make sure that the people who are selling us the property are actually the sellers. So they're going to do a lot of work on the back end to make sure that when you go to closing, this house is yours, that there are no issues that are going to arise from a financial standpoint that could potentially disturb your ownership of the property. And most of their work is going to take place in the background. You're really not going to talk to them. Once they get the file, they'll send you an introduction to say, hey, this is who we are, this is what we'll be doing for you, and then you really just don't hear from them until it comes time for closing, because this is the company that will do your final settlement. They're also the ones that hold your earnest money deposit. So they're the ones who do your closing. So what will happen is once we get to the closing table, this is the first time you really actually meet these people in real life. And it'll be when you're signing your documents. So, it's good to know that we've got this great team, and they're going to be on the back end of the deal doing all the dirty work to make sure that this house is yours. There are no problems with it. If there are, they're going to do everything that they can to resolve those problems with title. So we've had problems arise as small as small unreleased lien that was easy to take care of. But then we've also had things where we had an entire development was attached to one property. It was a $60 million lien, but they took care of it and they got it fixed. So, it was a really weird situation. So it's just going to depend, but they're going to do all that work in the background, and they're going to coordinate with the seller's title company to make sure that they're all working together and getting everything straightened out and ready to go so that you can go to closing day and have a nice, easy closing and a great ownership of the property. And that'll bring us to step 9, and that's going to be final walkthrough. So we've gotten through your home inspection. Termite and moisture is good. We got that cleared up. We've got the appraisal in, and that's good. So, this process is looking great. Your mortgage has been processed. You're clear to close. We're ready to go. So now we're going to move to our final walkthrough. And generally speaking, we're going to do this about, usually a day before closing, maybe 2 days before closing if the seller's already out of the house. And our goal there is going to be to go back to the property and, one, make sure they've moved out properly. So make sure they've gotten all the personal items out of the house that they were supposed to, that they left it in at least broom swept condition, and cleaned up any other kind of junk they may have had in the yard. So we want to make sure they moved out. We're also going to go through the house and check all of the systems in the home to make sure they're working. So we'll check the appliances in the kitchen. We'll check the HVAC. We're going to check, we're going to flush every toilet and run every faucet, every shower. Make sure nothing new comes up. Also make sure there wasn't anything that was hidden. last thing you want is to, have the sellers move out and move a couch, and all of a sudden there's this huge stain. You just don't want those things to happen. So we try and get into the property a day or two in advance to make sure if there is something that comes up that we can get it remedied. Now, the other thing you're going to want to do prior to your final walkthrough is schedule your utility transfer. So the great thing is that you can do most of them online, and we can give you all those numbers and email addresses and websites, but you're going to want to get your utilities transferred for the day of closing. So we really like to have a smooth transition of utilities, because when that happens, your fees remain low. But as soon as something gets cut off, the utility companies around here love to just jack up the price to turn it back on. They're like, oh, that's $100. You're like, why? And they just do that. So you want to have, in advance, you want to call, make sure that for the day of closing, you're ready to take over utilities. That, at that final walkthrough, assuming everything is good there and that the house looks ready for you, everything is working fine, any home inspection repair items they were supposed to do have been completed. And technically, you can bring your home inspector back to final walkthrough if there are a ton of inspection items. We don't do that too often, but you do have the right to do it. So if you end up with a list of 20 items and you want your home inspector to come back and take a look at them, you can do that. So, but generally speaking, it's just going to be us at the house, and we're going to go through, make sure the house looks great and that it's ready for you to buy and ready for you to get those keys. So that brings us to step 10, closing. So congratulations, you are buying a home. Generally speaking, we're going to do this closing at our settlement attorney's office. I am going to sit there and do mostly nothing throughout the entire closing because I don't have anything to do other than smile. And then you are going to sign paperwork. So probably, anywhere from around 40 or 50 pages to over 100 maybe, depending on the loan type. So you could sign, and you do that for about 30 minutes, and then you're done. And I hand you the keys to your new home. So it's super exciting. It's really fun. We take a big picture, we put it on Instagram and on Facebook, and everybody says congratulations, and it's amazing. So that is when you will be able to take possession of your home, unless we're in some scenario where we're renting the house back to the seller, which is a thing. But that's when you get your house, you get the keys, you can bring the U-Haul and just pull right up to the house and start unloading stuff. So congratulations, you have bought a home and you have made it through all the steps to purchasing a home here in Hampton Roads. Well, there is one more step, and that's referrals. So I do work mostly by referral. And so if you know anyone else who's thinking about buying or selling during your home buying process, I would love to help them out. So please feel free to send along my information. If you're having a great experience, I can promise a great experience for them as well. All right, let's wrap up for the day. Okay, well, there it is. That is the home buying process from beginning to end. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave those below and I'll reply to them as soon as possible. And I really want to thank you for sticking through this whole video, because I do promise you that the transactions where people have taken the time to understand this process are really the ones that go the best. And so if you're ready to get started with your next home search, do me a favor, give me a call, shoot me a text, or send me an email. I would love to help you out. In the meantime, like this video, share it with anyone else you know who may be buying a home in the near future, and then subscribe to this channel so you can see all of our future videos. Again, my name is David Tortellini. Thanks so much for watching.